Close your eyes for just a second. Well, okay, keep them open, but I want you to imagine you've just woken up. You've poured your morning coffee, you're shuffling over to the window, and you pull back the curtain, fully expecting to see that familiar warm golden glow of the sunrise. But there is absolutely nothing. The sky is completely black. And I don't mean a gloomy, cloudy day dark, and I definitely don't mean a solar eclipse dark. I mean absolute pitch black nothingness right where the sun is supposed to be. The stars are out, sure, but the one star that actually matters, the one that has dutifully shown up for work every single morning for 4.5 billion years, is simply gone, vanished. It's almost as if someone reached a hand out into the cosmos and just unscrewed a giant light bulb. Welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're not just looking at a fun sci-fi hypothetical. We are going to deeply, thoroughly examine our fragile, beautiful, and completely mandatory connection to the star that gives us literally everything.
Okay, let's dive into this. Before your coffee gets completely cold and your heart rate goes through the roof thinking about this, I want to sit you down and we are going to walk through this thought experiment chronologically, hour by hour. We're going to take our time here because this explainer is going to unpack the deeply intertwined relationship between the sun, the Earth, and your very own human biology. We're going to look at the massive shifts in physics, the absolute chaos of the weather, and the sheer human will to survive against the ultimate freeze. By the time we finish walking through this thought experiment, I can promise you, you will never look at a simple, ordinary sunrise the exact same way ever again.
Section 1. The first 8 minutes. Blissful ignorance.
So if the sun vanished this very instant, right while we're talking, you and I wouldn't even know about it right away. We wouldn't freeze, we wouldn't panic, and the sky wouldn't instantly go dark. Why is that? Well, it all comes down to a very specific, fascinating time frame: 8 minutes and 20 seconds. That is exactly how long it takes for light to travel the 150 million kilometers from the burning surface of the sun all the way to Earth. Now, light moves incredibly fast, right? About 300,000 kilometers every single second. But the sheer vastness of space is so immense that it still takes over 8 minutes just to cross that gap. So for 8 glorious, perfectly normal minutes, we are literally living in the past. We still see the sun, we still feel its warmth on our skin, completely and perfectly ignorant of the massive cosmic event that just happened.
To really picture this, think of it like watching a live football match on television, but with a 10-second broadcast delay. Over on the actual field, the goalkeeper has already dived and saved the penalty kick. The play is over. But on your screen, the striker is still running up to the ball. Those 8 minutes are humanity's cosmic broadcast delay. The sun is technically gone, but the final photons, those tiny, invisible packets of light, are still racing across the solar system toward Earth. But it gets even deeper than just light. Gravity also travels at the exact speed of light. So for those same 8 minutes, Earth just continues its orbit normally, happily tethered to the gravitational curve of a star that no longer actually exists. But the exact moment that final photon hits our atmosphere, the cosmic delay ends. 2 terrifying things happen simultaneously. The sky goes completely black, and the gravitational leash snaps. Earth stops curving its orbit and starts drifting, in a straight line, completely unguided into the freezing void of space.
Let's move to minutes 8 to 60. The world notices.
The moment that 8-minute delay ends, the very first thing humanity notices isn't actually the cold. It's the profound, terrifying darkness, and the eerie silence that follows the collective gasp of 8 billion people. The sky goes black, but crucially, the moon vanishes too. A lot of people forget that the moon doesn't produce its own light. It's merely a giant rocky mirror bouncing sunlight back at us. So suddenly, the night sky is just distant stars. Social media naturally erupts. Astronomers are left completely speechless, and global panic sets in. But the real impact isn't just up in the sky. It's happening right inside your own head. Our bodies are essentially highly tuned daytime machines. Every single cell you have is biologically tuned to the rising sun. Instantly, your pineal gland, this tiny little structure deep in your brain, totally freaks out. It acts like a confused dispatcher, frantically pumping out melatonin, the sleep hormone, in these erratic bursts, because it suddenly thinks it's midnight. At the exact same time, your cortisol levels, your stress hormones, spike wildly because your body is stressed. It fundamentally knows it shouldn't be pitch dark at noon. And finally, your serotonin, that feel-good chemical that sunlight actually helps your body synthesize, absolutely plummets. Within just an hour, massive waves of biological anxiety and confusion wash over the entire human population.
This biological crash brings us to a very real condition you might already know about:
seasonal affective disorder, or SAD for short. This is that heavy, sluggish, almost foggy sadness that a lot of people experience during the dark, gloomy winter months. I really want you to realize that SAD is just a very mild, everyday preview of what total solar absence would feel like. Your brain desperately needs the sun. In fact, if you want to do a practical little experiment today, try this out. If you've been working indoors under artificial fluorescent lights all day, just go outside for 15 minutes. Seriously, just let the actual sun hit your face. Pay attention to how your mood naturally shifts. That's not a placebo. Your brain chemistry is literally physically reacting to the radiation of a star.
We are now entering hours 1 to 6. The cold creeps in.
Surprisingly, in the very first hour, the temperature doesn't drop quite as drastically as you'd think. Why? Because Earth is essentially a giant oven that has just been turned off. You can test this basic concept yourself. The next time you park your car after a really long drive, turn off the engine and put your hand flat on the hood. It stays warm for a surprisingly long time, right? The Earth's atmosphere acts as this massive insulating thermal blanket, and our vast oceans are enormous heat reservoirs that absolutely refuse to give up their stored energy quickly. But while we aren't freezing to death just yet, the absolute foundation of life on Earth is instantly compromised. Photosynthesis stops completely. Now remember, photosynthesis is basically a plant's version of eating. You take away the sun, you completely take away their food source. It's like every grocery store on the planet vanishing in a split second. Now large, mature trees, they have massive energy reserves stored up in their roots as sugars. They can survive for quite a while in the dark. But small seedlings, delicate plants, and crucially, the microscopic phytoplankton floating in the ocean, they are instantly on a ticking clock. And since plants and phytoplankton produce the vast majority of the oxygen we breathe, the global oxygen factory effectively shuts down. Thankfully, we have enough oxygen banked up in the atmosphere to last us thousands of years, so we definitely won't suffocate. But it perfectly proves how dependent our very next breath is on the sun.
By the 6-hour mark, things begin to get genuinely uncomfortable. We start seeing surface temperatures around the world drop by roughly 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. So if it was a beautiful, comfortable 25 degrees when the sun vanished, it's now a chilly 10 degrees. But the really crucial point here is that heat loss is not linear. It doesn't just drop at a steady, predictable, even pace. It accelerates. Think of it exactly like a heavy ball rolling down a steep hill. It starts off slow, but then it picks up this terrifying, unstoppable speed as our atmosphere rapidly radiates all our remaining warmth out into the icy vacuum of space.
This brings us to hour 6 to 12. Darkness gets serious.
We are now half a day in. Surface temperatures in many places are rapidly dropping below 0 degrees Celsius, freezing. This is where the actual physical geography of our planet starts working against us. Tropical regions, places like the Amazon rainforest, that have maintained incredibly stable, warm, humid temperatures for millennia, are suddenly experiencing shock frost. Cold-blooded animals, tropical birds, amphibians, creatures with absolutely zero biological defense mechanisms against freezing cold are in immense, immediate danger. Geography dictates survival here. Coastal areas experience a much slower cooling, while inland areas just freeze rapidly. Why the difference? The oceans. Water has an incredibly high heat capacity. You can actually do another practical experiment at home to see this. Fill a rubber hot water bottle with boiling water and put it in your bed under the blankets. It releases that trapped heat slowly over several hours, keeping you warm all night. The ocean is doing exactly that on a planetary scale for the coastlines. It's giving a massive thermal hug to the coastal cities. But if you live in Kansas or Central Asia, thousands of miles from the ocean, your temperature is plummeting way faster than someone living in San Francisco.
As this intense cold sets in, your own body initiates extreme, involuntary defensive protocols, and it starts with something called vasoconstriction. This is the process of your body forcefully pulling warm blood away from your skin's surface and your extremities to protect your absolute most vital organs, your heart, your lungs, your brain. I want you to think of it like a medieval city under a brutal, unexpected siege. The commander makes the tough call to pull all the soldiers back from the outer walls to tightly protect the inner castle. Your fingers, your toes, and your nose will go pale and completely numb. That is vasoconstriction at work. Your body is deliberately sacrificing the edges to save the core.
Right after vasoconstriction comes a much more violent, noticeable reaction: shivering. Involuntary shivering can actually increase your body's heat production by up to 5 times its normal resting rate. It is an incredibly powerful automatic mechanism where your muscles rapidly, violently contract and relax to literally generate friction and internal heat. But it comes at a massive cost. It burns through massive amounts of energy, rapidly depleting the glycogen stored in your liver and then immediately moving on to burn your fat. This is a vital lesson for any real-world cold emergency you might ever face. Never, ever try to fight or suppress your shivering. I know it's uncomfortable, but it is literally your body desperately trying to keep the internal furnace running. Let it work.
Moving on to hours 12 to 18, the world transforms.
The planet is now undergoing a violent, literal withdrawal from the solar energy that usually pacifies it. Most land surfaces across the globe are now well below freezing. But the sheer cold isn't the only problem we're facing. The atmosphere itself is beginning to tear apart. You see, the engine of our global weather system has always been the sun, heating the equator, driving the massive evaporation cycles, pushing the high-altitude jet streams. Without that continuous solar engine, we get absolute atmospheric chaos. We're talking roaring gales and massive, blinding snowstorms. Because the oceans are still relatively warm, but the vast land masses are freezing incredibly fast, it creates extreme pressure gradients. Heavy, freezing air from the land rushes violently toward the lower pressure over the warm oceans. It picks up huge amounts of moisture there, and then dumps it right back onto the freezing land as relentless apocalyptic snow. The entire atmosphere is basically thrashing around in the dark.
At this point, global hypothermia is setting in for millions, and it's absolutely vital to understand its stages, just as a real-world survival guide. Stage 1 is mild. This involves that intense shivering we talked about, fumbling hands, and slight confusion. Your body is actively fighting the cold. Stage 2 is moderate, and listen, this is the extreme danger zone. This is when the shivering actually stops entirely. This means your body's energy reserves are completely gone. Your brain gets so profoundly confused by the failing thermoregulation that it might interpret the sensation as extreme heat. This leads to a tragic phenomenon called paradoxical undressing, where freezing people literally tear off their winter clothes in the snow. Stage 3 is severe. This brings unconsciousness and a dangerously weak pulse. The grim but important takeaway here? The absolute moment your shivering stops without you getting near a fire or an external heat source, you are in grave, immediate, life-threatening danger.
Section 6, hours 18 to 24. We are now deep into the long night.
Global land temperatures have absolutely crashed to -30, even -40 degrees Celsius in some places. A thin crust of solid ice is forming on calm coastal waters. Human infrastructure is failing under the immense, unprecedented strain of global heating demands. Now, populations in naturally cold climates, folks in Scandinavia, Canada, who have heavily insulated homes and robust winter gear, they are enduring this. But tropical cities, places where buildings are specifically designed to release heat and catch a breeze rather than trap warmth, they are suffering catastrophic losses. And as humanity huddles together in the dark, hungry and freezing, we really begin to realize the absolute truth about our food. It's what we can call the solar conveyor belt. Think about it. Sunlight hits the earth. Plants convert those incoming photons into sugars. Herbivores eat those plants. Carnivores eat the herbivores. Our entire global food chain, every bite we take, is just reconverted starlight. Every single calorie you have ever consumed in your entire life started its journey as a photon forged in the core of the sun. Experiencing a 24-hour total darkness really proves how incredibly thin the thread is that connects a blazing star millions of miles away directly to the dinner plate in your kitchen.
But amidst all the terror, the panic, and the freezing cold, there is actually a moment of profound, breathtaking beauty. Without the sun, without the moon's reflective glare, and with power grids inevitably failing across the globe, the heavy blanket of light pollution that covers our modern world completely vanishes. For the first time in modern human history, billions of people can look up and see a spectacularly beautiful, unbroken river of stars. The Milky Way stretches across the black canvas of the sky, glowing vividly, completely unobstructed. People living in massive, glowing cities see the true, deep universe for the very first time in their lives. It is a heartbreakingly beautiful, majestic contrast to the freezing nightmare happening right down on the ground.
And then we finally reach the final stage, the 24th hour. The sun returns. Exactly 24 hours after it vanished, the sun blinks back into existence just as suddenly as it left. 8 minutes and 20 seconds later, the very first photons slam back into Earth's atmosphere. You feel a sudden, intense, life-saving warmth on your freezing skin. The sheer, unfathomable power of the sun, which pumps out septillions of watts of energy, instantly goes right back to work. Within hours, the surviving plants slowly restart photosynthesis. The fresh ice begins to melt. The great thaw begins. We are heavily battered, we are freezing cold, but humanity survives. Now, obviously, we wouldn't need to actually endure this apocalyptic nightmare to learn some very real lessons from it. There are practical, everyday takeaways here for all of us. First, start actively using the sun as free daily medicine. Get your 15 minutes of natural light to naturally boost your mood and your immunity. Second, respect your own biology by dimming those harsh lights at night to help your circadian rhythms wind down. Third, eat your meals with a sense of gratitude, remembering that you are literally consuming the converted energy of a star. Fourth, always respect the unforgiving, brutal nature of extreme cold. And finally, try to find the time to step away from the glare of city lights just to look up and reconnect with the incredible night sky.
Which leads me to one of the most awe-inspiring thoughts we can possibly ponder. It's this: you are not just looking at the universe. You are the universe looking at itself. Really take a second to think about that. The carbon in your muscles, the iron flowing in your blood, the calcium making up your very bones, every single heavy element in your body was literally forged in the superheated, crushing hearts of ancient stars that violently exploded billions of years before you were even born. You are, quite literally, walking, talking stardust, waking up every single morning just to be warmed by another star. So, I want to leave you with one final question to think about today. Why are you waiting for some massive world-ending catastrophe to appreciate the incredible light that is already here? The sun rose this morning just exactly as it has for over 4 billion years. It's out there right now, generously, quietly beaming its life-giving gifts across the immense void of the solar system. Do me a huge favor today. When this explainer is completely over, step outside, close your eyes, and just feel the warmth on your face. Take a second to recognize the absolute mind-bending miracle of our perfectly ordinary, entirely life-giving star. Don't waste it. Thanks so much for learning with me today.